Our founders understood the importance of a free press. After all, this is how we get our information a lot of times about what government is doing. Not to say we always want to assume that government is lying to us, but having a media that has the ability to look into, to watch what's going on and report back to us, that's a pretty phenomenal thing. This is why we see the freedom of the press in our First Amendment of the Constitution. This allows the media to report on, check, even criticize without fear of repercussions. And that's huge news to us because that means that we're well informed on what is going on. Now, in our past, we've had a variety of forms of media. We've had yellow journalism. This is that sensationalized reporting that often isn't really big on facts, but it's about that headline. Do we still have some of that today? Yeah, we do. You probably know of some articles you've read that sensationalize some topic. All the way to muckraking. This is kind of the investigative journalism that we saw kind of in the progressive era of the United States. It went into businesses and the media went into government to expose some wrongdoing that was done. Ultimately, who are the benefactors of that? We the people. So we definitely like the news media, and it's worth discussing what kind of powers and what opportunities and what responsibilities the media have. The media have four main power sources: what we call agenda setting, interpreting, persuading, and then just being an agent of socialization. Now, agenda setting. Imagine, if you will, a phrase to remember this by: the media don't tell you what to think, but what to think about. Think about all the stories that your nightly news could cover. They can't cover it all, it's just too much. So they break everything down and determine the stories that they think are most important. This is agenda setting, and it's a power that the media has because they get to decide effectively what we're thinking about, what we're focusing on. Then you move into what we call framing, and this is more of that interpreting, perhaps even more of that persuading element of media, where the way a news story is told, or the types of evidence that's used in that story, or maybe telling one side a little more than the other, is definitely swaying our opinion one way or the other, one side to another on a particular issue. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just important to recognize that sometimes media outlets are more interested in just getting you to think. Some are more interested in getting you to think about something specific. Some are more interested in getting you to think specifically a certain way about a topic or an issue. Socialization is just a lot of how we get our ideas, how we get our values, how we get our beliefs. And so the media, using these four opportunities, these four powers, have an incredible influence on our day-to-day lives as American citizens. The media does come under its share of scrutiny. Is it fair? Is it honest? Is it right? And so regulations have attempted to control certain aspects of the media to ensure that we, the people, are getting something fair, truthful, and accurate. We used to have what's called the Fairness Doctrine. This doctrine stated that both views had to be shared. So if a particular news channel or a particular radio show was going to give this candidate 15 minutes, well, they had to give this candidate 15 minutes as well, because that was fair. That was later repealed and replaced with what we call the equal time doctrine. That was later replaced with this idea that you have, if I'm a media company and I'm going to give this candidate an ad buy for $1 million, I can't upcharge or I can't give a discount to this candidate over here. I have to be fair across the board with that respect. If you think about things like the State of the Union address, well, if CNN or Fox or MSNBC covers the State of the Union address by the president and it lasts 2 hours, does that mean that they have to give the opponent or a Democrat response, in this case with President Trump in office right now, do they have to give that? Well, if not, why do they give the Democrat response? Well, a lot of times that's just seen as being fair. These media companies want you to feel comfortable coming to their station to get your news. And so they're going to attempt, at least, to try and get a large swath of the population to tune in to that particular news program. Now, what about when the media releases something inflammatory? Can the government come out and say, hey, that's going to cross a line, so you shouldn't be able to report that. You shouldn't be able to publish that story. Well, prior restraint says that the government can't come in and tell the media you cannot release something unless there's an incredible urgency to national emergency. And the court has sided with the news media here in saying, hey, government, if you don't want a story shared, you better make sure that that story doesn't fall into the wrong hands. Again, it's controversial. There's a lot of good debate that can be had there, but ultimately, as the American people, do we want the government to decide what we can and can't hear as a story? Or do we like the idea of a free, open, and fair media to let us know what's going on? Now, it does not mean that the media can publish anything they want. We do have libel and slander laws. If the media writes out anything that's proven to be untrue against a citizen, that's libel. Slander is just spoken word if you watch it on a broadcast. And media can get in trouble for that. Now, if you're a public official, that bar is set much higher. That's why a politician who did something perhaps wrong and the media covers that story, they can't go say, hey, look, you destroyed my reputation by publishing this story. Well, as a public figure, you're expected to, that your life is going to be much more visible. But a private citizen, there are things the media can't touch when it comes to you and your personal life. It's a bit of a difference in standards there. Ultimately, the media is a powerful tool that, if utilized properly, keeps us well informed. Whether it's to go vote, we want to be well informed. To know what a particular piece of legislation that was just passed, what that means for us, we want to be well informed. The media has an incredible opportunity to help us with that, and so ultimately there's a reason why we celebrate this First Amendment protection.